Hey guys, welcome back to Node.js series. This is part 10. And all the things that we have learned so far is leading to this particular moment, to build a small project so we can actually try out what we learned so far. So we have learned the file system, external modules. We learned how to pass argument via command line. And we're going to use that information to build a very small application called grocery list. And if you're not following the entire series, please do so. I'll provide a link here in the corner. And welcome to TechSit Tutorials. All right, so let's look at the requirement for this grocery app that we're going to build using Node.js. So it will ultimately produce a file, something like this. It's an example.json. It's a JSON file which has an array, and each item has two properties, item and price. And since it's a grocery list, it will be grocery items. So here I have tomato and its price is 30. Potato price is 60. Milk price is 10. So usually when you any grocer would have items that they are selling. So this will be a list of items that they are selling, and this is the price at which they are selling it. There'll be multiple commands. So the first command would be add. So when I type node app add, and then I have to provide two parameters, item, which would be the item here that I'm adding, and the price. So it will add another item here, eggs. However, let's say if I am adding an item that already exists inside the list. For example, if I'm adding potato again, and so if I say potato, and then if I add 10 here, which means that I want to increase this price of potato by 10 more. So what I'll do, I'll take the price of the potato, which is 60, and make it 70. So it's pretty simple. And if I haven't seen potato inside this list, I would add another item with that price that I mentioned. Now, because we can add things, we should be able to remove things as well. Let's say if that vendor is no longer selling that item, then it should be able to remove, for example, I can remove tomatoes, and it would remove this line altogether from the list. Next, we will have another command called print, and this will basically print the entire list. And lastly, we will have a command called price off, and that would print me back the price of particular item. So I can say, okay, I want a price of tomatoes, then it would print me 30 in this case. Okay, so let's start by creating our app.js. We will also need a package.json since we might use a package or two. So for that, I can do npm init, and it will create a package.json for me. And here I have a package.json. Also, let's install Yarg. As we looked at in the previous tutorial, we needed to grab arguments from the CLI. So we need yargs. So I would say npm install yargs -- save. All right, so we have all of the things that we needed now. So let's start programming. And again, if you want to build, if you learned all of the things that I taught you, and if you want to try building this first before you look at my solution, I would suggest you can stop the video, build your own solution, then come back and compare with my solution with yours. Okay, so in the app.js, obviously I would need that yargs. So I would say yargs equal to require yargs. So now I can grab the arguments. So first thing, as we looked at, we need to grab the command. So I would say let command equal to yargs dot argv dot underscore 0. So that would give us the command. So if I do add, remove, this would be that. Then the second thing would be I would need to get the item. Remember, in the example, I have item and the price. So the item should be yargs dot argv dot item. And similarly, I can get price equal to yargs dot argv dot price. Now we already know that there could be 4 commands: add, remove, print, and price off. So I can already build that. So I can say command equal to, let's say if it's add, then I'm going to do something. Else if command equal to, let's say, remove, then I'm going to do something. And then similarly, I can say if it's print, then I need to do something. Then if it's price off, then I need to do something. Otherwise, if you print any command beyond that, which I don't know, then I would simply say console log. Okay, this doesn't make any sense. Okay, now let's start with command add. So what happens when I type in add? I would also have to provide item and price. Remember, add, you need item and price. So all the functionality of all the commands, I don't want to put it in one file. I want to separate this file out. And I would create another file called commands.js. Now within this file, I can build all these commands. I can have first command, which is add. And as we know that we would need item and price. And it will be an arrow function. And let's say console log adding. And I can export this. But I know that I'm going to export more than one things here, right? So I don't want a single export here. So what I'll do is module dot exports equal to add. Now let's import the command.js here so we can use it. So I would say const commands equal to require, and since it's our own module, I would simply put commands. Now when I hit the command add, I should be able to call this add function. So we can say if you call add and if you provided item and price, so I can say if and price, then I wanna have commands dot add, and then I wanna pass item and price. All right, so let's run our first command add. So I would say node app add and dash dash item equal to tomato. Obviously we haven't plugged all of those stuff in, but I just still want to do it. And price equal to 30, because if I don't provide it, it won't execute this command. So it says adding here, which means it is grabbing it. Now I can actually add to see if the item and price is coming here or not. Okay, so if I run it again, it would say adding tomato 30. So it is coming here. Okay, so great. Now let's build a functionality for add. So how do we do it? So inside the command, I would have to read the file if it exists already. So let's say we're gonna call our file grocerylist.json. It doesn't exist here at the moment, but we can call it that. So first thing we need to do is, since we're gonna do file operations, we need fs module. So I can say const fs equal to require and then fs. And since it's an internal module, I don't have to install it. I can read this file that doesn't exist because it will exist in future, because we're gonna create it when we write something. But first we need to read this file. So I wanna read it synchronously for now. So I would say fs read file synchronously, and the name of the file is grocery list.json, and I can have a try catch. This means read this file. If there's an error, print an error. I'm just gonna say console.log. So now if I run this, obviously it's gonna say no such file or directory, which is fine because it doesn't exist. But what if this file really exists? Then we need to read the content of this file. So let's say if the file is something like this, right? Then we need to read the content of this file. Then if I want to add something, let's say new item here, I cannot just append it here. So if I append it, it would do something like this, right? Which doesn't make sense. I need to read this object as a string. Then I need to convert this into JSON. Then I need to insert the entry inside. Then I want to convert back to a string when I write it. So since we are reading it here, let's convert into JSON dot parse. So what we get is grocery list is this, and this is nothing but an array. We can initialize this array here. So I can say let grocery list equal to, initially it's an empty array, and when you read it, you load that. If you don't have the file, then the grocery list still will be empty at this point. The next thing is, if there is already an item inside this grocery list, let's say if I'm trying to add tomato and I already have tomato inside, then I would need to actually find that element which index this file is located, and then I would need to increase the price by the price that I'm passing as an argument. If I can't find this item, then I can just add a new item to this. So in order to find the index, I would have to say grocery list dot find index. So this is a built-in functionality in JavaScript where I have to pass a callback function which gives me each iterate to each item, and if each element has item which matches the item that I am passing here, then it would return an index. So I can say let index equal to, but if it cannot find this index, then it would, let's see what it prints. So if I console log index, we'll find out what it prints. Because at this moment, there is no such thing as groceries because we haven't created a grocery.json. Obviously, it prints an error, which I don't want. So I'm just gonna comment this out. Prints me -1. So if it doesn't find this item in the list, it prints -1. Since we know this, I can say if its index equal to -1, which means I cannot find this, then I need to add this to the grocery list. So I can say grocery list dot push, and I would create an object where I have item and price. But what if I already find this item? Then what do I want to do? So I can say else. If I find this item, then I simply need to, because I already know, let's say if I found tomato here and the index is 0, then all I need to do is simply increment the price with whatever price I have. So all I have to do is grocery list and index. At that index, I want to simply add the price. Alright, so once we build our grocery list, now we need to write this. So again, we can use a file system. Write file sync. The first argument would be grocery list.json, and the second argument would be, remember, this is still an object or JSON, right? So we need to convert this into string when we write it. So I would say JSON dot stringify and grocery list. Now the important thing to notice here is, let's say when it tries to write this, and if it cannot find, if there is no file such as grocery list.json exists, it will create a new file and write to it. Usually write file sync actually always replace the content of that file, right? Because you are rewriting the whole thing. So if there's no file, it will create one. So let's see what happens. So now if I run this, voila, I have a grocery list.json file. And as I can see, I have tomato and price is 30. All right. So now let's test our code. What if I add another tomato, put the price 10, which means it's supposed to increment this by 10, which makes it 40. So let's run this. There is some error, object 10. That means we have some problem. So let's debug this. Yes, when I find something at the index, I need to dot price, then only it would increase the price. So that was a problem. So I'm just gonna delete the grocery list file. Let's run this with, all right, so now let's run with price 30, tomato price 30, and it creates a file, as you can see. Now let's run it with price 10. Now it increments it. If I do it again 10, it should make it 50. If I, instead of tomato, if I add, let's say, eggs, then it would create another entry, item eggs, price 10. So it seems to be working fine. All right, so let's add the second command, which is remove. Okay, let's go back to now remove command into our app.js. So now for removing, I already care about item because we will provide only one argument, which is item. So I need to check if that argument exists. So I can say if item, then I can command dot remove, and I would have to provide the item. Now I haven't really created that command here because we only so far have add. So I'm going to create another variable, const remove equal to, it's an arrow function, and the argument would be item. So what are we doing for the removing? So similar to add, for removing, I would have to create an empty list. Then I have to read, because I need to remove from the already existing file, right? So I would have to I have to read the content of the file, grocery list.json. Then I would also have to find the index, the item that I'm removing, and then remove the item, and then write the file back. Okay, so the steps are going to be very similar. Now I'm going to write a lot of duplicate code here, and we would need to, in the end, restructure this code such that a lot of repeating things can be inside as common functionality. But for now, I'm just going to write the whole thing again. So I would need a grocery list, which is an empty array. Then I'm just going to copy the code from here. So I would need to get the grocery list, which I'm getting it by reading the file. Now I need to find that item inside the grocery list. But instead of finding it and removing it, JavaScript provides a nice function called filter, which would filter this out. So I can say const filtered list equal to grocery list dot filter, and it's similar. You have a callback function for each item. If x dot item is not equal to the item, then only keep it, otherwise filter it out. So let's check if it works here. So if I do console.log filtered list, so currently our grocery list has tomato and eggs. So what I'm gonna do is node app remove dash dash item equal to, I'm gonna remove the eggs. Oops, there's an error on app.js on line 17. So here, that is because we are calling it remove, but we need to actually export this. So we have built this function, but we haven't exported. So we need to add this to here. It's supposed to be commands. The library we are importing is commands, not command. So that's the problem. And now when I remove it, it prints this tomato. So it has removed it. Obviously we have written it back because we're just looking at the filtered list. Now let's write it. And to write it, it's the same thing. We can just take this write file sync. Instead of grocery list, we need to add the filtered list. Okay, so currently our grocery list contains tomato and eggs. Now let's remove it and see what happens. Okay, so the eggs are gone. I can also remove tomatoes. And now it's an empty array. All right, so the next command is print. So I can say const print equal to. It's an arrow function, and it doesn't have any argument. It just simply prints the entire list, right? Which is pretty simple. So all I have to do is console log. Well, I have to read the list first, right? So here I have to have a grocery list, which is empty. Then I have to read it. So I'm going to read it. And then I'm just going to print it. So I have the console.log and grocery list. And again, I have to add this print here so that it would export this. And inside here, all I have to do is commands dot print. All right, so if I do node app, let's add first a few things. So I'm gonna add eggs and some tomatoes, and then I would say node app print. All right, so it would print eggs and tomatoes. All right, the last thing is price off. So how do we do this? So price off should be pretty simple. Again, I have to build another function called const price off equal to. It's an arrow function, and I would need item because we are trying to get the price of an item, right? Again, I have to do all the same stuff, and we will refactor this code, but let's do this first. So I get the grocery list. Now I have to again find the item, find index. So I can just copy the find index here and do this. And then I would have to simply, if the index is not equal to -1, which means there is an item that I'm looking for inside the list, then simply I have to say console.log grocery list and index. You can say, let's use a template string, price of is. Okay, again, we need to export this, and then I need to add this price off inside this. For that, I have to check if there is an item. Commands dot price of item. Okay, so let's do node price of dash dash item equal to eggs. There is an error. App.js line 22 was supposed to be if. All right, so it says price of egg is object, which means there's some issue here as well because we filtered it. Now I need to print the price, so not print the entire object. So now if I do that, it says price of eggs is 10. Okay, so how do we refactor this code? There's so much duplicate stuff here. What I'm coding, I'm okay with writing duplicates because I don't know what functionality I'll be adding. So I do this, and then I would look at things and I said, okay, you know what? For reading, I'm doing, every time I read, I have to write this. So I need to put this in some functionality. I can say read, return this. And for write, I can do the same thing. So I can have two function. One is read and one is write. So let's do that. So I can say const read file equal to file name as an argument. And then I can just copy paste all of this here. And now I can say, okay, so if there's an error, then well, let's do this. Return here, and otherwise return an empty array. Okay, and now I can replace this with grocery list read. Then I can say grocery list dot JSON. I have to do the same thing. I can just rewrite this here and here too. All right, so now let's just try it out to make sure it works. Let's do price of eggs. It works because it has to read it. So I just need to check one to make sure that it works. Similarly, you can do the write file as well. All right, so I'll put this code onto my GitHub site and provide the link in the description so you can check it out. And if you have a different solution, please send me. I will review it. And again, this is the first break into the series. So I will further the series, build more tutorials on it. So for the further tutorials, please check it out, the video at the end of this video. And I hope you learned something new from this video. And if you did, please like, subscribe, provide nice comment. And thank you.